All right, so we just looked at a vertical translation. Now we are going to look at a different type. So this time we're going to take f of x equals 3x. Okay, that tells me my slope is 3, or 3 over 1, rise over run. And my b, well, there's nothing there, so it really just means it's plus 0, which would give me an ordered pair of 0, 0. So we're starting at the origin. Okay, so right there. We're going to rise 3, 1, 2, 3, run 1. That's about there. Okay, and we could go down, rise 1, 2, 3, run -1. So it's about, it looks something like that. That's close. Okay. Now, we are given g of x, which is going to equal f of x plus 1. Okay, so unlike the last one, this is influencing f of x. F of x is no longer f of x. Now it's f of x plus 1. So what we're going to do is we are going to take f of x plus 1, okay, and we're going to, this tells us right here, we're replacing the x. So if we look here, we had 3x, so 3, but in place of the x, I'm going to put this new piece, x plus 1. Okay, so in place of the x, I put this x plus 1. Now, using distributive property, we have a new function. We have 3 times x, which is 3x, bring down the plus sign, and 3 times 1, which is 3. So this is my new function. Now, this function has a slope, again, of 3. So they still have the same slope. They're still moving the same direction. But I now have a y-intercept of 3, which tells me I am at 0, 3 for my y-intercept, which is 1, 2, 3. Okay. Now you're thinking, oh, it just moved up. It's a vertical. Not quite, because what really happened is it is moving 1. But if we look at this, let's rise -3. 1, 2, 3, and a -1. There we go. So do you see how this one, okay, what happens is it moved over. Okay, so this point went to here. Okay, which means it moved horizontally this time. So this is known as a horizontal translation. Again, you don't need to work it out, translation, if you know what the formula means. The basic formula for this is f of x minus h. Okay, so looking at this, there's our x. It's supposed to be a minus, but we have a plus, so that means minus a negative, right? Because negative is positive, and our h value is the 1. Okay, so my h tells me I am moving -1, which is why we moved this direction. We moved 1 to the left. So this is a horizontal translation. Because it's inside and it's affecting our f of x, it's moving 1 step, but it's going to move it to the left because of this formula here. Okay, so that is known as a horizontal translation. Vertical translations and then horizontal translations are 2 big ones that you need to be comfortable with. Okay, there are some other ones, and let's see here. In interest of time, we're going to just look at these quickly. There are reflections. Okay, a reflection means it is being reflected off of either the x-axis or the y-axis. So if it is being reflected off the x-axis, what's going to happen is we now have a graph. We had a graph of f of x, but what's going to happen to this, we now have a graph of negative f of x. Okay? When you do that, it's going to flip it. So for instance, let's say this was, let's say f of x just equals x. Okay, and I'm going to let's do this on the calculator. So I'm just going to type in an x and graph it. Okay, and let's see if I can get the brightness to go up. There you go. Okay, so there's f of x. Okay, now what this tells me is now, since I have a negative f of x, I have a negative whatever the function was. Well, in this case, it's just a negative x. So let's go back to my y equals. And now I'm going to type in a negative x. Make sure you do not use a minus. You have to use a negative. Now when I look at it, see, there's f of x. There's negative f of x. It flips it around the x-axis. Okay? This one came down there. That one went up there. This one came down there, this one went up there. So that is around the x-axis. So a reflection on the x-axis looks like this. Now, reflection around the y-axis. So if we had our f of x, okay, what is happening is I still have my f, but my x is no longer going to be a positive x. It's now a negative x. Okay? So if my function was f of x, I would get x. Okay? But this one flips it around the y-axis. So it is going to look a little bit different. This one here, let me sketch it out because I think this picture, the one I'm using, works. But so if this was our original one for the x-axis, what happens is this switches. Okay, so it would look something like that. Okay, and you can kind of see that flipping. Now over here, if we were looking at, this was our f of x, it's going to flip here, which means it's going to look, it's still going to keep that together, but we're going to flip it this way. Okay, this one kept over here, but this one kept the y. Okay, see how we kept the x-intercept here. And here we're keeping that y-intercept. Okay, again, those are a little bit harder to see with linear functions. This is going to come back again with parabolas, and it makes much more sense there. So we're just going to kind of try to look at these. The horizontal and vertical are probably the best ones to learn. And then if it goes around the x-axis, it has the negative on the outside. If it goes around the y-axis, the negative is on the inside. Okay. There is also something known as a horizontal stretch. So we have a horizontal stretch or shrink. And again, this one is harder to see with the lines, with the linear functions that we are working on right now. There is also a vertical stretch or shrink. Now, what we're looking at for these is, this one says f of x, but then we are going to turn it into, it's still going to be the f, but instead of the x being left alone, I'm going to multiply it, let's say by a 2, okay, some number, okay? Now that number tells me I'm horizontal. When it goes inside, I'm horizontal. I'm either a stretch or shrink. But this number here tells me a factor, we're stretching or shrinking by a factor of not 2, but 1 over 2. Okay. This one, your y-intercept stays the same. So y-intercept is the same. Okay. The vertical looks similar, so it's f of x, but the value that you're multiplying by, we're just going to use 2 again, is on the outside of f of x. Okay. This tells me that I am vertically stretching or shrinking by a factor of 2 this time, okay? Not the reciprocal, but exactly what it says, okay? This one is going to have the same x-intercept. All right. The first 2 that I showed you were the most important and the easier ones to figure out. These are ones we need to know, but we're going to continue to work on them with better functions, not so much a linear.